250 years on from the Battle of Lexington, I think it's a good idea to look back at the initial presidents and see how they reacted to another sort of revolutionary freedom, the French Revolution. To start off with George Washington, President Washington initially viewed the French Revolution with cautious optimism. However, as the revolution raged on, Washington and his administration grew increasingly worried about how the French Revolution would affect the new nation. On the 22nd of April, 1793, Washington issued a declaration of neutrality to the French Revolution, and that the U.S. would remain impartial in all conflicts concerning either France or Great Britain, fearing that whatever Washington did would have devastating effects on the new nation's economy, and he wanted to make sure that without a doubt, the United States of America was a stable, independent republic. Washington's vice president and presidential successor, John Adams, also initially viewed the French Revolution with a degree of hope and cautious optimism, acknowledging its potential for positive change. However, as the revolution became more violent and more radical, with the dubbed Reign of Terror, Adams's support waned. He feared that the revolution might undermine the initial cause and ultimately destroy the French nation. Adams also recognized the priority for American neutrality, so as to not destroy the American economy. After the revolution ended while Adams was president, Adams worked for diplomacy, seeking to resolve the XYZ affair and end the quasi-war, which he did both successfully. Thomas Jefferson, who's definitely remembered for being more pro France than pro Britain, and was even minister to France at the start of the Revolution. He initially supported the revolution without even thinking twice. He viewed the revolution as a natural extension of the American Revolution's fight for liberty and self governance. He was sympathetic to the French people and the French cause, even offering his house to revolutionary Marquis de Lafayette. However, his enthusiasm waned as the revolution became more violent and radical, particularly with the Reign of Terror. While he deplored the violence, he generally still supported the core ideals of the French Revolution. James Madison, who was very often considered the natural successor to Jefferson, continued on his views on the French Revolution. He believed that the French Revolution was the natural consequence of the American Revolution. He believed that the French Revolution might inspire other nations to embrace republican ideals and overthrow monarchies. He was very optimistic that the French people would institute a good, new French Republic. However, as the revolution waged on with the Reign of Terror, Madison's support began to wane. He acknowledged that the revolution incited chaos and tyranny, even if it was intended to establish a republic. He then began to favor a more moderate approach to revolution. President James Monroe, a staunch Jeffersonian, followed whatever belief that Thomas Jefferson held. He was a vocal supporter of the French Revolution, viewing it as a natural extension of the American Revolution, and he also held James Madison's view that it would lead to more nations introducing a republic. However, he was a much stronger supporter of American involvement. Monroe wrote multiple essays on why Washington's government should send foreign aid to the French Revolution. In 1794, in an effort to appease those in Congress who were pro France, Washington sent Monroe to France as the French ambassador. While as ambassador, he presented the French government with a list of grievances, but also complimented their trade policy. Seeking to foster a positive relation with the French, he assured the French government that the Jay's Treaty would not impose new trade obligation. Monroe viewed the Jay's Treaty as detrimental to French-U.S. relations, as it was a significant shift away from the alliance that had been critical during the American Revolution. His strong criticism led to his recall by Washington. Though this incident significantly impacted his career, however, it didn't impact it too much, as he continued to rise within the Republican Party. Like many other Americans, John Quincy Adams initially welcomed the French Revolution, seeing it as a potential ally against Great Britain and a step towards republicanism. He hoped for democratic reforms that would solidify the US France alliance. However, as the revolution progressed, characterized by violence, Adams became concerned about the possibility for anarchy, fearing that the destruction in France might destabilize the United States. He then came to believe that the French Revolution was a sort of phantom freedom, warning of its dangers. Adams worried about the potential for the French Revolution to spread violence to other places. Adams watched, growing with concern, Napoleon's tyrannical rise to power. Despite his concerns, he realized the importance for American neutrality. As a young man, President Andrew Jackson was influenced by the American Revolution, which he saw as a fight for self government and liberty. He viewed the French Revolution as a similar movement, attempting to overthrow a monarchical government and institute a republican one. However, as the revolution waged on, the reign of terror made Jackson turn away from the French Revolution. Jackson's political beliefs were grounded in republicanism, emphasizing individual freedom and the importance of popular support. While he supported the revolutionary split, he distanced himself away from the violence.